evening, the 13th of July 2020. Welcome to the 41st episode of the News Report. To present it, my name is SALIFYANJI. Well, if you're joining us right now, thank you so much if you're watching us on your Top Star channel 112, as well as our Facebook live feed, that is Live TV, as well as our YouTube channel, that is Live TV channel as well. For your comments and contributions, we really appreciate your feedbacks, and please send those messages to 0976-599-547. So the number is scrolling at the bottom of your screen. Be sure to get in touch with us for any particular concerns or contributions to the leading stories for this evening. And so we get right into the leading stories for this evening. USA government urges Zambia to respect freedoms. Ndola Hospital out of kidney treat supplies, says the Health Permanent Secretary. Industrious miners impregnate 7 girls in Rufunsa. And COVID-19 could force about 10 million kids out of school. We get into the detail of this for the first story. The Zambia Police Inspector General Kakoma Kanganja has warned political cadres on their growing tendency of holding illegal protests, storming police and radio stations with impunity. Kanganja's statement comes in the wake of protests by Patriotic Front cadres in Lusaka and the Copperbelt provinces protesting following the booing of President Edgar Lungu in Monze. He says the invasion of radio stations by political cadres whenever a political figure is being hosted has continued, with the recent one being in Mfulira district of the Copperbelt province. Mr. Kanganja has warned all those who think they are above the law that the Zambia police shall not sit and watch the unruly conduct of political party cadres take its toll. He adds that the tolerance which police officers have been exercising should not be taken for weakness. Kanganja also reminded political players that police stations are not their playgrounds. He says police should not at any point tolerate any misconduct or thuggery behavior by anyone, irrespective of their political affiliation, and has called on all police officers to ensure that such criminal conduct comes to an end. Furthermore, Kanganja has warned that the growing trend of thugs attacking radio stations under the guise of politics is criminal and should come to an end forthwith. Meanwhile, U.S. Embassy in charge of affairs to Zambia, David Young, has made reflections on Zambia's violence of freedom of speech, expression, and assembly in Zambia. He has condemned the storming of radio stations by ruling Patriotic Front cadres. He also condemned sentiment made by some political officials of urging police to break bonds of protesters. We have this clip and we'll come back to digest and dissect the story. Stay tuned.
Like the United States and other countries, Zambia is a signatory to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and thus committed to free speech. It is unfortunate in Zambia today that it is frowned upon to say anything critical about senior government leaders or problems in government without risking being censored or even threatened with arrest. Some people say if you criticize the president, you are unpatriotic. One leader in the National Assembly said government and party cadres should break the bones of its critics. That is inflammatory and not a peaceful exercise of freedom of speech. For me, freedom of speech needs to take place in the context of peaceful expression. If party cadres break into a radio station because the host is interviewing an opposition leader, that is a violation of freedom of speech. If media outlets that feature opposition and critical voices are closed, that is not freedom of speech. And when the Public Order Act is unevenly applied, allowing one party an unfair advantage of holding events and rallies, while opposing parties and civil society groups are not granted the same, that is a restriction on freedom of speech. Now, freedom of speech is often difficult, because at its core, it requires that people who decide to go into public life must tolerate criticism from all quarters. Whether you are a mayor, a police chief, a diplomat, or a national leader, democracy requires you to sign up for public criticism. If you want to have political power and influence and the status and responsibilities of public office, you have to be willing to be criticized, fairly and unfairly.
So that was the U.S. Embassy in charge of affairs to Zambia, Mr. David Young, and he was just talking about infringement of rights. So this infringement on the freedom of speech, the freedom of assembly, and also the freedom of expression as well. If you're just joining us, you haven't missed so much. We're still on the first story for the day. If you have any comments and contributions, please come through on 0976 599 547 as well. So to just say a few things about what Mr. Young was saying pertaining to the infringement of rights, and when it comes to freedom of speech and expression as well. I do know that most people will come out strong and probably condemn what he has said, and him being, someone that is of U.S. descent and not really being a Zambian. So the criticism there might come in a bit, on the negative side from some people. But personally, I feel that when we look at it in a positive way, we have such a thing as positive criticism. If there's anything that we need to work on, then let's work on it. If there's anything that he said that we feel is not really necessary, then we might as well carry on, as opposed to condemning everything, at the same time as well. So I feel like we should not really disregard this particular information that came through, or advice that came through from the U.S. ambassador. So also, one other thing that I noted also is that sometimes we need to really try to listen more, and get the context of a message and then work on it as we should. If anything, we have nothing to prove, but we have more to do for ourselves, not because other people can see how well we are doing as a country, but what's important is putting priority to the indigenous, to the people that are local, to every citizen of Zambia as well. Because then again, what would someone outside really be condemning us for if we're doing everything, that is looking towards the rights of the countrymen and women themselves? And to get to the comment by the Inspector General, Mr. Kakoma Kanganja, I feel like finally, it's a good thing that he has actually spoken out about what is going on, because to a certain extent, it makes the whole police service look as if it's not doing his job, and he's the man that is in charge. So for him to actually come out and say that, warning political cadres and everyone that wants to storm into the police station and feel as if it's their home, I think there need to be that, distinction and respect that needs to be given to that higher office as well. The police service is trying to do their work. That's why even now I appreciate that, it's been changed now from the police force to the police service, because the police are there to offer a service and protect the citizens of the Republic of Zambia. So clearly, I have noted that the Inspector General himself noted the growing concerns based around, the unruly behavior from the, cadres in this particular point, because we see, back and forth between cadres, rising a bit against each other and all that. Then I do not really see or understand the need for as to why the Lusaka and Central provinces, or Copper Belt province, had to protest following the Boeing incident that happened in Monze. We shouldn't really be that type of people in this particular regard, where we have to respond, without paying much attention to who is going to be affected in one way or another. Because when cadres rise up against each other, we have seen that they keep on attacking each other, and we need life to be preserved. We need people to listen more. We need people, or the government in itself, to act, on the needs that have been expressed in the country as well. So I feel the government really, the leaders should not really be, focusing on who is rising against the other. They have a lot more to do in the office, and we should let them do their job in their in peace rather. So if you have any, concerns about how, the government is not, how the government may not be doing you a favor or doing a good job at it, I think it's best that we get to a point where we have more dialogue. We talk within. If you belong to any political party, have conversations, look at how you can work together, whether with the ruling party or whether with the opposition party, and talk more about peace than having to raise a lot of, dust, and letting the grass suffer in this particular instance as well. So I feel also that order and peace has to be maintained. I've deliberately said order and peace and not peace and order because I feel that now we need to prioritize, the art, or get used to the art of being a well-represented nation. So everyone has to do things the right way, where there's a level of order involved in how we carry on our concerns or our daily routine here and there. And this is not just to say politically, no, but I think generally we just need to be a people that are of order. The reason why we have a body that is governing is obviously to maintain a certain amount of law and order. Even when you have, the courts of law, the police service as well, even the government itself, is to make sure there's some order that is being maintained in every sector of the country as well. So each one has a role to play. And we shouldn't be a country or folk that is going to solely depend on government to make the change. We have to begin with ourselves. Charity begins at home after all. So if we can start and make that move and obviously do the right thing and not involve yourselves in things that are going to cause, a loss of a life, then we are headed towards the right direction as well. So to get back to this particular story also, it just, when we have a certain type of order, rather, regardless of where you belong to, it just shows now that yes, indeed, we are a democracy. It's a government by the people. So the right to assembly, really, I think in this case, it's just a matter of concern where you have, an opposition political party going to a radio station or a TV station and are trying to just communicate to the people. I think we really need to respect that. The ruling party or the government itself respects, the idea of having another political party, also running, trying to win people over. It's a democracy. You have different political parties. So why should we infringe on those rights as well just because we are not, we do not belong to that political party? I think this has to come to an end. And also basing on what the IG said, that the police will not at any point tolerate any misconduct or thuggery behavior by anyone, irrespective of their political affiliation, and has called on police officers to ensure that such criminal conduct comes to an end. Today may be in your favor, tomorrow might not be in your favor, so you never know what the odds might be. So you're better off just living at peace with everyone. And after all, the good book says that a time and chance happens to all as well. So we are, as a country, I think we're really enjoying, the freedom that we have. We are a democratic country. We live at peace with each other in general. We are a Christian nation. It's only a good practice if we do not really abuse the freedom that we have right now, but we sustain it so that it continues, to give for this generation and the generation to come as well, so that those that are coming behind will be able to emulate. And so I respect the Police Inspector General for having really brought up this issue and said something or warning people that, bring about this confusion in the country. So we'll take a break and we'll come back with more stories after this. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You are watching News Report. My name is SALIFYANJI. BWEUPE. To hear or to contribute to this particular segment, please send your messages to 0976-599-547 as well. And also, if you're watching us on your Top Star decoder of channel 112, and as well as our Facebook feed, that is Live TV, thank you for joining us this particular evening. Into the next story, the Daily Mail newspaper reports that 70 girls have been impregnated after being enticed by men involved in mining activities in Chieftainess Mopashia's area in Rufunsa district. Speaking in an interview, Zambia National Men's Network for Gender and Development National Coordinator Nelson Banda said the influx of young men from urban areas who are conducting mining activities in the chiefdom is threatening the future of girls. Banda said because of poverty, girls in the area cling to young men who venture into mining activities in the area. Banda said many girls have fallen out of school in the chiefdom, saying the most affected areas are Kawesha, Shimungo, and Chakenenya. Okay, so that is a report coming out of Rufunsa district. It's a very, very sad development there where 70 girls so far have been impregnated by some men that are involved in mining activities in the area as well. I really don't know where to place my blame on this particular one, but the very fact that we have young girls that are getting pregnant, at a tender age and dropping out of school is very, very sad in itself. And I don't think it's a good development, be it in the urban, be it in the rural community as well. I think enough education needs to be done when it comes to just curbing the dangers of maybe early pregnancy, and also looking at where we are sitting at as a country. Are these children that are going to be born are they going to be given adequate care as well once they are born as well? Then I do understand that it could partially the blame be put on the poverty that is happening in certain areas as well. But in as much as that could be the case, I really feel it's very unfair to actually place this on poverty as well. These young men that are going into these communities or these districts to work, really, why would you even resort to that? In as much as I've seen in the story, where the blame is trying to be put on the girls, saying that they cling to the young men, who go or venture into mining activities. That's kind of like one-sided, because even the young men could actually stop, this habit from developing or adding or multiplying and all that. And in as much as the Zambia National Men's Network for Gender Development have responded, I'm just thinking, where is FAWEZA in this case? Where is YWCA? Where is, Save the Children as well? Because obviously some of this could even be minor. And all these women's organizations and the church as well, I think, should rise up and just respond to what's really happening. We can't stop what has already happened, but from it, yielding more fruits or happening again, I think we need to just stand up and have the organizations that are in charge of women as well as the government to just come in and see how they can help these communities, meaning it shouldn't really be limited to Rufunsa, but every other rural area and district needs, people to just go in and sensitize them, on how to protect themselves if need be, on the dangers of early pregnancies, on, how to be empowered. I should think the other alternative could be to empower these young women as well, and also introduce skills training. Skills training should not be limited to those ones that are able to afford it or reach it in the main areas, the urban areas. I think skills training should be really be in every district of the country. Every corner, every district has to have this skills training just to empower, whether it's a young woman or it's a young man, so that they're able to, have a stable life as they go as well. We know, in as much as we've talked about on this particular show to do with business and how business cannot be for everyone, but I mean, when it comes to sharpening of a skill, everyone has got a unique skill, and it's very important to actually nurture that and grow it and just help people see what they can do with a particular skill, as opposed to being dependent on, school or government to actually employ them or give them that opportunity to be employed as well. We have an interview with the Mr. I need to get his name, sorry. Okay, so we have an interview based on the Bill 10, and I'll not introduce him right now, but we'll come back after this break and we'll be here with the interview. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying tuned. We are back with the news report. And before the break, I introduced that we will be having a very interesting guest and we'll be talking about the Bill 10. And on the interview right now, in a telephone interview, we are joined by Mr. Nelson Musoni, who is the All People's Congress President, that is the APC. Mr. Musoni, thank you for joining us on News Report. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, viewers.
Okay, so to get right into it, we want to talk about the much debated Bill number 10. So we have seen, some billboards being put up over the Bill 10. What is your stance on that?
First, I must say that we are crestfallen. We are ashamed by the behavior and the general desperation of our friends in this government. Look, a good law, you don't need to advertise it. You're not marketing, unless you are marketing a very bad law. A good law is generally accepted by all Zambians without question. But when you see your friends putting up billboards everywhere, it's self-admission that they have not made a good case for that particular piece of legislation. We are indeed crestfallen. And our greatest fear, and this is an allegation we are making, we think that this government has embezzled the funds meant for the payment of retirees. They are using the money meant to pay retirees to put up these billboards. Remember, a month ago, the Minister of Justice announced to this nation that the following Monday, retirees will be paid their money. I can tell you that not a single government retiree has received any money. But what we are hearing is that their money has been diverted towards putting up these Bill 10 billboards. And we think that this is the most unfortunate that has happened. So we think that government must come clean. You don't need to waste resources. When your hospitals have no medicine, when your hospitals have no equipment, I think this level of desperation is very dangerous to all concerned.
Sure. So are you saying that the government is trying to push an agenda for this Bill 10 to be enacted because they could have, aside from maybe the embezzlement of funds, do you think there's so much more as to why they want to push this agenda?
Exactly, because you see, we have never known this government to be behave in this desperate manner. It can only be that there is a sinister agenda. And we believe that those who are bad by this constitution are trying to go around a particular clause to ensure that they make themselves available, they make themselves able to be on the next ballot in 2021. So we think that self-serving pieces of registration is something that we should all condemn, because the moment you are going to start making a constitution around the interest of an individual, I think it's a very dangerous precedent of amending a constitution. Okay? A constitution, every constitution has casualties. Okay? That is what a constitution is. A constitution must have casualties.
Right.
So if there's a constitutional casualty in the PM, we must accept that there's a casualty.
Right. Okay. So, Mr. Msoni, do you think the bill number 10 will pull through, considering how people are taking it, or most people have spoken against it and others are speaking for it? Do you think it stands a chance?
No, the people who are speaking for it are those who are paid. Those who are hired are the people who are speaking for it. But any genuine Zambian citizen who knows the danger of passing such a piece of legislation are all against it. How are you going to have politicians getting paid after the dissolution of parliament? Why should you have politicians campaigning using government vehicles with flags? No, I think that's unacceptable. How do you remove Article 52, the one that challenges unqualified, ineligible candidates? You remove that from the constitution. Then what are you doing? It means that even a Chinese with a Zambian national registration card can contest to be president. He can contest to be a member of parliament. So that is the linchpin of the constitution. Article 52 is the linchpin of the Zambian Republican Constitution. It protects this country. Okay, if you talk about national security, it is embedded in that Article 52. That is what protects everybody. So if you want to remove that because you want it to suit a particular individual, I think then we are creating a very dangerous precedent for ourselves.
Right.
It's like playing football and then you remove a goalkeeper. That is what they're trying to do. When you remove Article 52, it's like removing a goalkeeper. That provision, Article 52, is what protects everybody. Anyone who's aggrieved, any Zambian who's aggrieved, who has reason to believe that a certain candidate is ineligible, will have to challenge the eligibility of a particular candidate using Article 52, subsection 4. So if you remove that, the whole thing is expanded, repeated, then what are you doing? Okay, you can't open the country to everybody. No, you can't. Because removing Article 52, it means that even foreigners holding a national registration card can contest any office. How are you going to stop them? So we think that common sense should prevail. We want our friends to inculcate common sense in their desperate pursuit for political power. When the time is over, when your shelf life is over, let's give chance to others to make a contribution. You're not the only one. You're not indispensable. This country will always be there even after you've left.
Okay, but don't you think most people are just picking one or two items in the bill number 10 and not looking at the whole thing holistically, as into what could be a positive and something that might help the governance of this country?
Well, everything is already in the main constitution. Some of the things that have been used are just flowers. They're just made to try and disguise the clauses of interest. They have clauses of interest, like the one I've spoken about. Article 54 is their clause of interest. So to try to camouflage their interest, they've brought in all these other issues which are already addressed in the current constitution. They're already provided for. Most of the things are already there, except what we oppose is introduction of deputy ministers. We say this country has so many needs. We have so many poor people in this country. For us to reintroduce deputy ministers when we can save these monies and use these monies to channel them towards our hospitals, which at the moment lack vital equipment and drugs. This is what we are saying. And we are saying when parliament is dissolved, those who are holding political office like ministers must leave government. That's what we're saying. And Mr. Lungu and his friends in government are saying, no, we must continue to be ministers up until the election day. So
and the opportunities for women and the disabled as well?
Oh, to nominate. He has those 70 people, so he can nominate if he wants those people genuinely. That's why he's given that leverage, that parameter for him to make nomination, but he doesn't want to do that. So we think that it's most unfortunate to try and incite and excite some of our friends and say, look, this is what is contained in Bill 10, when you know that's not true. The clause of interest is the repealing of Article 52. That's what the problem is.
Okay.
And we're saying, no. Don't waste public resources. It's shameful, really, that you see grown-up men wasting so much resources when hospitals have no medicine. That the people have to travel 86 kilometers to go and access X-ray machine. For example, I can tell you that Sparta General Hospital, only X-ray machine broke down 2 months ago, and the people have to travel to go to Katete to go and get an X-ray. And where do poor people get money to travel to Katete to go and get an X-ray done?
Sure.
So let us be serious. Public funds should be used to service and serve the interests of the overwhelming majority of our people, not one person. Look, one person has already spent so much money, and it's not fair.
Okay, so I don't think you really responded to what I asked about whether you think the bill number 10 will pull through or not.
Well, we are appealing to the better nature of our members of parliament.
Sure.
And those members of parliament who are going to support this bill, let me say this, that we will follow you to your respective constituencies and we will campaign you. Then you don't mean well for this country. Then you don't love your members, you don't love your constituent members, you don't love your people in those respective constituencies. If you do, you cannot support a bill that takes away money from the poor people and giving it to politicians. Politicians should be earning money for doing nothing after parliament has dissolved, or that politicians should be using public resources to campaign and using government vehicles.
Right.
What kind of cheek is that?
Okay, now, Mr. Msoni, do you think the appointment of 8 MPs is enough?
Absolutely, but how many representatives do you want, even from the physical challenge? How many people represented do you want in parliament?
Right.
Do you want 10? Do you want 7? So some of these things can better be addressed even in the context of the current provision of current subsisting constitution. You don't need a separate piece of legislation to try and fix that. Since when have they shown interest to address those issues? Okay. So why are they so desperate? Since when have they not been desperate to deal with those issues? I'm happy if they're desperate to fight poverty. I would have been happy and supported a bill that helps fight poverty amongst our people. But a bill that is crafted to serve the interest of one man, that I'll fight today, I'll fight tomorrow, and I'll fight it forever.
Okay. So what you're basically saying is that pertaining to certain clauses that are in this bill number 10, is that there's some, clauses that could actually be handled right now, like the opportunities for women and disabled, is something that opportunities would be given already. They can appoint someone to represent, the women and the disabled as well.
Well, I can't get exactly what you're saying, but I assume that you are saying that. Come again, pardon?
No, I meant that what you are saying now, holistically, is the fact that instead of them having to seemingly push the agenda of having women and disabled people involved just as one way of looking at it, they should actually begin to make that change now and not really depend on a legislature to actually change what is already existing.
We can address the imbalance. If the president has a will to address those issues, he can still address some of those issues of concern. If he's serious about addressing the issues of the disabled and the women, we support the participation of women in the political life of our country. We also support the inclusivity of those with physical challenges.
Sure.
But we think that the current bill which they are trying to push through our throat really is not about them. It's about him and them. Okay?
Sure.
So let us put this in their proper context. This is for those whose ambition is threatened. This is for those whose political ambition has expired on its shelf life has expired. So they are trying to renew that shelf life, which has politically expired. So we think that it's wicked to take advantage of vulnerable people, to use that as an excuse, as a pretext for you to run again through pushing Bill 10 through our throat. So we think that it's wicked, absolutely wicked, to use issues of the disabled, and in fact, also to use women, to take advantage of the vulnerability of women. They say, look, this bill, we are trying to increase the number of women participation in politics. I think it's being wicked when you know that's not true. So we are saying that it's most unfortunate, we find ourselves in the most unfortunate situation.
Sure.
And we appeal again to our members of parliament to resist the temptation of being used to deprive our people of the much needed resources through supporting Bill 10. So you can reject that. Let us reject that for once and for all.
Sure, thank you.
If we said no to Mr. Chuba and said 10, why should we say yes, Mr. Lungu said 10?
Right. Okay.
If we are going to accept, we would have set a very dangerous precedent. And every president is going to do that. Okay?
Sure thing. So, Mr. Sonny, thank you so much for joining us on News Report. Do you have any closing remarks?
Well, again, I appeal to our members of parliament. We are saying that this matter of Bill 10 is no longer a partisan matter. It's a Zambian matter. We have something larger to protect. Zambia is larger than all of us. We all have an obligation to protect this constitution from being circumvented by those with insatiable appetite, by those who seek to use power for their own personal glory and aggrandizement. We are saying no, please help this country. Stand for your country. Demonstrate patriotism. Zambia needs you now, at this hour of need, at this hour of destiny. Your country and your people need you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening, Mr. Msoni.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So we were talking to Mr. Nelson Musoni, who is the APC president, that's the All People's Congress Party president as well. We're talking about the bill number 10. We'll go on a break and we'll come back with more stories after this. Thank you for staying tuned. You're watching News Report and my name is SALIFYANJI. We'll go into our next story. So government has admitted that Ndola Teaching Hospital in the Copperbelt province had run out of accessories required to treat people with kidney problems. Ministry of Health Permanent Secretary Technical Services Dr. Kennedy Malama reviewed that the ministry has received a report of such as challenge and it is being addressed. Dr. Malama says the government has acted swiftly to ensure that the consumables are made available. He said the number of people suffering from kidney problems is on the increase and has resulted in the increase in demand for such consumables. Dr. Malama said in an interview that the ministry will be following up on Ndola Teaching Hospital to check if they have received all the consumables. Green Party President Peter Sinkamba last week revealed that Ndola Teaching Hospital had run out of accessories required to treat people with kidney problems. Mr. Sinkamba said he had received information that patients were advised that starting on the 10th of July 2020, the hospital would not have the accessories needed for dialysis. He said this is now turning to be a national problem as some other hospitals that have the capability to offer such services do not have the stocks. He adds that we may see a spike in the number of people dying from renal failure, which the Ministry of Health will claim it's COVID-19 when they are not providing the necessary requirements to treat renal problems, as they are now treating every BID as COVID-19. So that is a story coming out of Ndola Central Hospital, and the unavailability of consumables or drugs meant to treat kidney disease as well. So from this particular story, I would like to point out one thing which I feel that it's a good thing that the government has admitted or acknowledged that yes, they are lagging in this particular area and that they are facing problems with the accessories that are required for kidney problems as well. I think due to the fact that we are currently living in this pandemic that was unexpected in every realm and sphere, in as much as yes, we did not see this coming, but I should feel there are certain problems that really need to be treated as a priority. So in as much as the government has acknowledged, I think we also need to just say that the government should have prepared, or the hospitals should have prepared. I should think there is a purchasing and supply department that makes sure that they have the right accessories that are required, or the medicines are there as well, like inventory is as it should be as well. Then I want to also find out if the hospital knew that they were running out of these accessories. Like, first of all, how long has this problem been happening? As much as this is something that was noted from the Green Party president himself, but the hospital also, I think, should have communicated earlier to not having what was required. Because for me, I feel this is probably, it's at the end point, where it's not the first time it's happening, it's not the second time, not the third, but has been going on for a particular period of time, and now it has been brought out in the open as well. So apart from that, what is the long-term plan that is going to come from government? And I think also the hospitals can come from, when it comes to inventory and every requirement that is needed, they just need to be on the tip of their toes and do their job as they should do it as well. Then, so what's happening in the interim? What is the treatment that is being given to those that need the attention, those that have the kidney problem? What is going to happen? How is the government going to, help them live or survive a bit longer? Are they collaborating with private institutions to ensure that the patients or the people that have kidney failures or renal problems are actually being taken care of? We need the government to also give us a strategy, probably on the long-term plan as well. It's a good thing to admit. It's also a good thing to know where you're at, but then we need to know what the steps forward are going to be as well, pertaining to this particular story as well. So I do hope that the government is going to act, like the stock is going to be taken in, and it will spread around every other hospital as well, not just general hospitals, but clinics as well. We've had challenges here and there, not only with staff, but equipment and medicines as well, that may seem to run out of stock as well. And so we get into our final and last story, and this is an international news item. So at least 9.7 million children may never go back to school after the COVID-19 shutdowns, according to Save the Children. The charity is calling it a hidden education emergency and says girls will be the hardest hit. Al Jazeera's Charlotte Bellis reports. Stay tuned.
10-year-old Elvis is from Harare and has been out of school for 4 months. He doesn't like it. He says he's forgotten his lessons and misses his friends.
I heard our school was closing in March because there was a disease called coronavirus. If it ends, we can get help with reading and writing at school.
A report by child advocacy group Save the Children has found that at least 10 million children locked out of school by coronavirus will never go back. Children in West and Central Africa, Yemen and Afghanistan are at extremely high risk of dropping out, while millions more are falling behind. Save the Children is forecasting that government budget cuts and rising poverty may lead to a $77 billion education shortfall across many countries until 2022. That could rise to nearly $200 billion if governments divert more funds from education to COVID response. With many parents like Shupai now out of work, they cannot pick up the difference.
What bothers me is because I have no money and I can't work, I end up crying because I think my children will end up out of school because I'm poor.
Of the world's 1.6 billion children who missed school this year, her daughter, 10-year-old McLean, is one of 500 million who fell on the wrong side of the digital divide.
While I'm at home, I'm not able to do online lessons because we don't have electricity. We don't have a laptop or the internet.
Girls will pay the heaviest price for school shutdowns, with many forced into early marriage or at risk of teen pregnancy. It starts a troubling cycle.
When those girls become mothers, those children are far less likely to be vaccinated. They're far more likely to die before their 5th birthday. We know that every year of education will increase earnings by around 9% a year. So for millions of children, this is their exit out of poverty, which is being closed down.
Save the Children is calling it a hidden education emergency and has urged debtors to delay repayments for poorer countries so they can pay for schools. COVID-19 threatening the prospects of millions of children for decades to come. Charlotte Ballas, Al Jazeera.
That was a news item coming out of Al Jazeera and from Charlotte Ballas on that particular report as well. It's a very sad, to be faced in such an unexpected pandemic such as this one that has almost seized, the existence of a normal routine life as well. We have challenges when it comes to, businesses and now schools as well. And I do understand where Save the Children is coming from when they say that those ones that are at high risk, are girls as well, because one, we can't deny the fact that most girls are taken advantage of, and there's a possibility of these young girls getting into early marriages as well and having to bear, all those burdens that only an adult needs to bear as well, so that they can escape the poverty, level, whether in the community or in their homes and the nation at large as well. So I think pertaining to this one, there just has to be a lot of consultation, collaboration with, the ministries in charge of education, and just see how best, education can still be reached even through this pandemic as well, because it's like we've been set to default and we're starting all over again, and yet we do not know where to start from, if it's grade 0 to grade 1, but it just shows how life can change in a matter of seconds as well. And the challenge, I think, from one continent to the other is being access to e-learning channels as well. Not everyone has the capacity to actually be able to learn or get learn through online sessions as well. It's either there's a power problem, or probably they just don't have any computer or laptop at home. And obviously there's the unavailability of tutors as well, because everyone is, trying to isolate themselves and keep themselves and their families safe as well. So this particular item brings us to the end of today's episode of the News Report. On behalf of my producers, Shatewa and Chimwanga Kalala, as well as Samson Chulu, and the executive producer as well. This has been SALIFYANJI saying good night and God bless.